Hi, my name is George and welcome to George Scalt TV News on the World News. England and Scotland exempt Singapore, Thailand travelers from COVID-19 self-isolation. London, Singapore and Thailand have been added to England's and Scotland's COVID-19 travel corridor list, authorities in the United Kingdom revealed on Thursday, September 17. From Saturday 4 a.m. UK time, travelers from these countries will no longer have to self-isolate for 2 weeks upon arrival in England and Scotland. The exemption was announced on the UK government portal, as well as on the Scottish government's official website. The exemption applies to travelers from Singapore and Thailand so long as they have not been in, or transited through, any other non-exempt countries in the preceding 14 days, said the Department of Transport and the Foreign, Commonwealth and Development Office, FCDO. Singapore and Thailand had already been exempt from the FCDO's Global Advisory Against Non-Essential Travel. Singapore currently has cross-border travel arrangements with China, Malaysia, Brunei, South Korea and Japan, while talks are ongoing to establish such arrangements with Hong Kong, Thailand and Indonesia. Singapore's daily COVID-19 cases fall to 6-month low with 18 new infections. Singapore, the number of daily COVID-19 cases in Singapore fell to a 6-month low on Thursday, September 17, with 18 new COVID-19 infections as of noon. This is the lowest number of cases since March 16, when 17 new infections were reported. All the new cases reported on Thursday were asymptomatic and were detected from screening and surveillance, said the Ministry of Health. The sole community case, who was unlinked, is a work pass holder. The 48-year-old Indian national was detected during the rostered routine testing of workers in the construction, marine and process sectors who are living outside the dormitories. Ma said epidemiological investigations of the case are in progress. All identified close contacts have also been isolated and placed in quarantine. Serological tests for the man's household contacts will also be conducted. The Health Ministry said the number of new cases in the community has decreased from an average of 2 cases per day in the week before, to an average of 1 per day in the past week. The number of unlinked cases in the community has remained stable at fewer than 1 case per day in the past 2 weeks. The 2 imported cases reported on Thursday comprise a work pass holder currently employed in Singapore who arrived from France on September 4, and a dependents pass holder who arrived from India on September 5. Both of them were placed on stay-home notices upon arrival in Singapore and were tested while serving their isolation period at dedicated facilities. Asia-China begins military drills as senior U.S. official visits Taiwan. Beijing, China began combat drills near the Taiwan Strait on Friday, September 18, the same day a senior U.S. official began high-level meetings in Taipei, as Beijing denounced tightening ties between Chinese-claimed Taiwan and the United States. Beijing has watched with growing alarm the ever-closer relationships between Taipei and Washington, and has stepped up military exercises near the island, including 2 days of mass air and sea drills last week. Chinese Defense Ministry spokesman Ran Guoqiang said Friday's drills, about which he gave no details, were taking place near the Taiwan Strait and involved the People's Liberation Army's Eastern Theater Command. They are a reasonable, necessary action aimed at the current situation in the Taiwan Strait and protecting national sovereignty and territorial integrity, Ran said. Taiwan is a purely internal Chinese affair that brooks no foreign interference, he added. Recently the United States and Democratic Progressive Party, DPP, authorities have stepped up their collusion, frequently creating disturbances, Ran said, referring to Taiwan's ruling party. Trying to use Taiwan to control China or rely on foreigners to build oneself up is wishful thinking and doomed to be a dead end, he added. Those who play with fire will get burned, he said. Taiwan's government did not immediately respond. Taiwan's Liberty Times newspaper said Taiwan Air Force jets scrambled 17 times on Friday morning over 4 hours, warning China's Air Force to stay away. It also showed a picture of missiles being loaded onto an F-16 at the Hualien Air Base on Taiwan's east coast. China's announcement came as U.S. Undersecretary for Economic Affairs Keith Krach began the first full day of his visit to Taiwan in a low-key way, with no open media events on his agenda. He is due to meet President Tsai Ing-wen later in the day, and on Saturday will attend a memorial service for late President Lee Teng-hui. China had threatened to make a necessary response to the trip, straining already poor ties between Beijing and both Taipei and Washington. Sino-U.S. relations have plummeted ahead of November's U.S. presidential election. Chinese fighter jets briefly crossed the midline of the Taiwan Strait last month as the U.S. Health Secretary Alex Azar was in Taipei, and last week China carried out 2 days of large-scale drills off Taiwan's southwestern coast. The United States, like most countries, only has official ties with China, not Taiwan, though is the island's main arms supplier and most important international backer. This week, the U.S. ambassador to the United Nations had lunch with Taiwan's top envoy in New York. China's UN mission said it had lodged stern representations over the meeting. On the other side of world, thousands of firefighters battled U.S. West Coast blazes amid overwhelming ruin. The Oregon Department of Forestry said 6,500 firefighters from the state and elsewhere in the United States and Canada were working to stop the blazes, along with other government agency emergency responders and community members. 26 fires were still active in Oregon on Thursday, according to the state's Office of Emergency Management. California's Department of Forestry and Fire Protection said more than 17,400 firefighters were deployed against 26 fires in the most populous U.S. state. U.S. Senator Jeff Merkley of Oregon described driving 600 miles, 965 kilometers, in his state to get a first-hand look at the devastation, visiting refugee centers, fire control centers and towns burned by the blazes. That's 600 miles. I never got out of the smoke. I remember fires in the past where I was driving and I would be in the smoke for 20 or 30 minutes. That's a big fire. This is apocalyptic, Merkley told CNN. To see these towns burned to the ground, it looks like a World War II town hit by firebombing, thousands of homes destroyed, residences destroyed. Merkley said a lot of affordable housing was lost, including apartment buildings and mobile home parks, while some commercial districts were burned to the ground. It's overwhelming, the Democratic senator added. The West Coast wildfires have filled the region's skies with smoke and soot, but some areas on Thursday were the clearest they have been in days. Kyle Sullivan, a spokesman for the U.S. Bureau of Land Management in Medford, Oregon, said a clearing of the smoke has allowed more firefighting to take place in the air with helicopters and planes dropping retardant. We haven't seen a lot of significant fire growth this week. It hasn't been super windy or super hot, Sullivan said. 8 deaths have been confirmed in Oregon. 1 fire-related fatality has been confirmed in Washington state. California's death toll stood at 25. Thailand reports first COVID-19 death in over 100 days. Bangkok, Thailand on Friday, September 18th. Reported its first coronavirus death in more than 100 days, a health official said, after an infected Thai citizen had returned from abroad earlier this month. The 54-year-old man was an interpreter based in Saudi Arabia working for the Thai Labor Ministry. He had been treated in a Bangkok hospital for 2 weeks and died on Friday, Somskak Slop, head of the Department Medical Services, told Reuters. Seoul City seeks $4 million in damages from church over new COVID-19 outbreak. Seoul, the metropolitan government in South Korea's capital Seoul said on Friday, September 18, it would seek 4.6 billion won, $4 million in damages against a church for causing the spread of the coronavirus by disrupting tracing and testing efforts. A fresh wave of infections erupted at a church whose members attended a large protest in downtown Seoul in mid-August, becoming the country's largest cluster in the greater capital area. The outbreak has driven triple-digit increases in daily COVID-19 cases for more than a month. The Seoul city government said it will file a lawsuit against the Sarangjil Church and its leader, Reverend Jun Kwang-hoon, accusing them of disrupting coronavirus tests and providing inaccurate lists of its members, which it said aggravated the latest epidemic. The city is seeking to hold the church and the pastor responsible for contributing to the nationwide respread of COVID-19 by refusing and hindering epidemiological surveys or aiding and abetting such acts, as well as submitting false materials, it said in a statement. Calls to the church seeking comment went unanswered. June, a harsh critic of the government, was re-imprisoned early this month for attending the August 15 rally in violation of his bail in April, when he participated in an illegal political protest ahead of parliamentary election and was indicted on charges of breaking election laws. The cluster has inflicted government losses totaling at least 13.1 billion won, $11.3 million, including 4.6 billion won on Seoul, the city said. The National Health Insurance Service has also said it will sue the church for indemnity worth 5.5 billion won, $4.7 million. The Korea Disease Control and Prevention Agency reported 126 new cases as of midnight Thursday, which brought the total infections to 22,783, with 377 deaths. The numbers, which peaked at 441, have steadily fallen to the low hundreds after the government imposed unprecedented social distancing curbs late last month. But authorities remained on high alert ahead of a major traditional holiday next week, when usually tens of millions of Koreans travel across the country, urging restraint on trips and gatherings. The holiday period will be a pivotal moment in our anti-virus campaign, said Yoon Tae-ho, Director General for Public Health Policy at the Health Ministry. That's our 10 minutes good news. Thank you for watching. I'm George and you're watching George Skull TV. Peace.